I call the meeting of the Executive Committee to order. This is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. We have 8 members present, 1 absent. We do have a quorum. Item number 2 on your agenda is approval of minutes of April 21st and May 12th. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Solner. Is there a second? Second by member Woolrab. Comments, questions, or discussions, corrections, or additions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. We still got some people off the screen. And opposed, motion's carried. We have one member.
Excuse me a minute, Chairman McIntyre, but there's only 6 members present, not 8.
They have the other 2 that are here. They've been in and out. They're connecting. They've been on the screen and off. I don't know why. I can't see them right now. Can you? Anybody else?
They're not in right now. So
What happened to them?
We only have,
11,
there's
6 would be, how many, there's 9?
there's 9 members of this
6 is
committee.
4.
We have a quorum then, Chairman.
We have a quorum. There were 8 members that called in. All
But
right.
even the 6 of them.
Even the 6
Yeah, I
is a
know.
quorum.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead. I'd like to welcome Mr. David Taylor, Executive Director of United Way. Mr. Taylor, thanks for joining us. You have 15 minutes to present to us. We'll probably have a couple other members come on the screen as you're talking. And so I'll give you the floor.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate you all having me here. And I'm going to cover a lot of material in about 10 to 12 minutes and leave a few minutes for questions. So bear with me as I do that. So obviously, part of the reason I'm here today is to talk a little bit about what United Way has been doing. Hold on just a moment. That's not there we go. Talk a little bit about what United Way has been doing as a part of our response to COVID-19 here in the community. And so just prior to COVID happening and really shutting down things in the state of Illinois, the United Way of Illinois and local United Ways had completed a study called ALICE, which is Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. That's meant to capture those people that are working but that are struggling financially and living paycheck to paycheck. They typically can't afford everything that they might need, and they frequently have to make trade-offs between what they need and what they can afford to buy. In McLean County, we know that there are roughly 24,000 households that are considered financially unstable. About half of those are in poverty, half of those are ALICE. With the ones that are in that ALICE kind of framework, they frequently don't have an existing relationship with a government agency or with the social service agency, so they frequently don't know where to turn when something like COVID, a disaster, a pandemic of this type hits. And we know that these disruptions and impacts are unprecedented. So we decided to take quick action on March 16th and established a United Way Community COVID-19 Community Care Fund and seeded that with $100,000. And we'll talk later on about where that stands now. But we wanted to provide a quick mechanism to get assistance out there. We wanted to focus in on coalitions, leverage existing networks, not create new ones. Whenever possible, create multiple benefits, and along the way, always be committed to complete transparency by frequent updates to stakeholders and community leaders. So let's just start with the basic problem. We know since March, since COVID hit, we're well over 9,500 unemployment claims filed locally. You compare that to April of 2019 when there were 364. And so when you think of it through the framework or the lens of those families that were already struggling financially here, COVID has a pretty significant and wide-reaching impact. As we worked with some of the local stakeholders, this chart kind of represents the needs that they identified and kind of the size or the frequency of, or the size of each of the pie slices there gives you an indication of just how significant these organizations felt those needs were. So you can see food and housing assistance were 2 of the key ones. And so that helped guide us as we look to start making an impact with the money that we had available to address those that were affected by COVID-19. So those imminent needs that we focused in on based on that were food insecurity or food access, unemployment workforce, housing assistance, and then childcare youth programming. And right off the bat, the most imminent ones that were the ones, I guess, that needed the most urgent attention to address were food insecurity and in some respects, unemployment or workforce. And how did we go about doing that? Well, we talked about creating a multiple benefit with the money that we had available whenever possible. Well, part of how we've done that is by investing in local businesses, particularly those hardest hit in the food sector and food service industry here locally. Since March 16th, we've purchased nearly $300,000 worth of food from local grocers, farmers, restaurants, and others. That translates into wages for local workers here and their families and help support them. And it's also created a number of impacts positively for those that needed access to food and were facing food insecurity. Here's an example of some of those businesses locally here that we've helped support. Here are some of those current distribution partners that we've worked with here locally. Like I said, we're looking to leverage existing networks, not create new ones. So the school districts have been a huge support system for that. A number of local churches, nonprofits, food pantries, and others. And what has the impact been? Well, just since we started doing Feeding BN and Beyond as a part of our COVID relief efforts, we've been able to source over 1,500 pounds of local produce from places like Prairie Earth Farms in the southwest corner of the county, Living Water Farms right next door in Livingston County. And those have gone to support what's happening in the school districts with some of their food programs. They had indicated that they were needing support for the adult or non-school age child in the household, as well as the evening meal. And some of what we were able to help assemble for them has made a critical impact. We've also served over 70,000 meals. This is actually up closer to 75,000 now as of last week. And we've, in partnership with places like the Tinnervin Family Foundation and others, have delivered nearly 1,200 food boxes during that time. Part of what's been helpful with us being able to address this, because we want to look at this at a county-wide scale, not any particular organization or a population necessarily, but we've assembled an advisory task force chaired by Deanna Frauchi. Many of you are probably familiar with Deanna, and you can see the variety.
I'd like to be able to attend this meeting.
You can see the wide variety of people and that are a part of this, that help provide advice to identify what needs there are, who else we should be connecting with in the community, and how we can make sure it's reaching all areas of the community, like our rural population and others. Part of what they've helped identify when we talk about some of the other needs is how infrequent mask usage was early on. And so in order to help protect our volunteers, the advisory task force helped to initiate a coalition that was assembling and procuring masks, either by making them, sewing them, or by being able to purchase them. As a result of that, we went from about 20% of volunteers having masks to pretty much 100% as of the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. So we've made every effort to help ensure the volunteers are safe as a part of this process. And we've also been passing masks out to those families and individuals that have been picking up food so that they are helped to be safe as well. So what's next for us? 2 of the key things that we see coming up next are housing assistance, and I'll get into a little bit more of the information on that here in a moment. And then also childcare youth programming and what that means, particularly as we look at some of the economy starting to reopen, and what it'll also mean when schools begin again in the fall. And how we look at this essentially is like various waves of need, right? And so the initial wave that was most prominent and most urgent for us was to address food access and food insecurity. And as you can see, over a short time span, we scaled up at the county-wide level to over 75,000 meals, helped hundreds, if not thousands, of families. and help stabilize them so that they can start addressing some other things. The next big wave that we see is the housing assistance, those that are facing impacts from a shelter standpoint. We know that a number of people have benefited and have been helped from the fact that the governor has extended the eviction moratorium here through the end of June. But we also know that that's only a temporary solution and it's kicking the can down the road, and that at some point here very soon, we're already starting to see increases of it. 2 weeks ago, for example, is the most recent information I have. They were already seeing increased calls at Paths 211, as well as through Mid-Central Community Action and others that are aligned with providing rental and utility assistance and mortgage assistance here in the community locally. So that's the next imminent one that we see, which is a part of our kind of ever-evolving focus as it relates to COVID relief and recovery efforts. And we know, like we said, that childcare youth programming is coming up as the economy starts to open more broadly. And then as people need to get back to work, there's going to be a need and a desire to help match people up with available jobs. So how do we do that? Well, we have to, first of all, look at what worked pre-COVID and does it still work post-COVID? We know, for example, with childcare centers, there's limitations on how many they can have in a particular classroom. There are different sanitation and cleaning requirements for the equipment that might be used, et cetera. And those are additional burdens that weren't there pre-COVID. So you have to evaluate, just because something worked pre-COVID doesn't mean it's going to work in a post-COVID reality. We have to think outside of the box, stay out of silos and think holistically. And whenever possible, put ourselves in the shoes of that person that's seeking assistance. Because frequently, if they're needing assistance with one of those areas, they're probably needing assistance with more than one. Oops. So I want to talk just briefly about our housing coalition. You can see on the screen here the wide variety of people that have been a part of that, including local officials that have a role to play because of money available through things like the CDBG grant and other things. And this group has done a tremendous job over the last few weeks. On May 29th, we held a press conference and released publicly our action plan for housing assistance. And that's available, through a link in a newsletter that we send out every week, or an update that we send out every week, and it's going to be posted on our website soon. It's already on websites for Bloomington City Township and others right now currently. So with that particular need, we know that at a minimum, we're looking at probably 1.6 million. And at the high end of the modeling, we're looking at 2.7 million for a 3-month span that might be needed to assist with rental assistance, utility assistance, and others. And so we estimate that there will be a gap, obviously, in what's available locally here in the community versus what the projected need is, based on things like the number of unemployment claims, based on things like previous access, and based on some conservative assumptions on what we might see. So that housing assistance, to some of the big wins from that particular coalition is they created a coordinated entry process. So across, whether someone goes to Normal Township, whether they go to Mid-Central Community Action, or whether they go somewhere else, there's no wrong door, and there's a uniform application. So the same 2-page application, which is translated in Spanish or French as well, is available on all those different websites and through 211 to ensure that somebody can get quick and easy access that qualifies for that assistance. That'll help us to maximize the funding available. And we're working right now to start getting, here's a sample of the uniform application and kind of how the grid works as far as what resources available and any restrictions that would be there. But we're going to make sure to get some information out there broadly in the community. We've got flyers and billboards. They're both also going to be translated, or have been actually, into Spanish and French as well. We're already starting to distribute the flyers through the food efforts that we talked about earlier, through Feeding Deanna and Beyond, and through the school system. So that's literally reaching thousands of residents here in McLean County already. And you'll start to see the billboards show up electronically, online, and other places in the coming weeks. Childcare and youth programming, just to hit this in a few sentences here. The need in the short term is not as pronounced and urgent as we initially anticipated. Right now, what we're hearing from providers like the YMCA, YWCA, Parks and Rec, and others is they're only operating at about 50%. What they've learned is that many parents have still not either, if they have returned to the workforce, they're reluctant to put their kids back in some sort of programming like this just yet, or they've made alternate plans, or they're still working from home. So at this point, the surplus, or the supply, I should say, of available spots still exceeds the demand. So there's not an urgency right now or a shortfall right now, but there could be one coming as the economy continues to open up. But longer term, what the schools are telling us is that they're going to probably need some help when the fall comes, depending upon what the reopening for schools looks like and how many people are able to be in any one place at one time. From a workforce, this one's still at very early stages, working with the EDC, the Chamber, Career Lane, Cartland Community College, and others. But we're essentially focused in on providing resources among the 3 pathways of that employee that's been furloughed and might need some short-term assistance, someone who's unemployed but could be placed in another job in relatively short order, and those that need reskilling or upskilling. And each of those are going to have a different level of resources that'll be needed for it. So I want to kind of close with encapsulating that we're all in this together. To give you an idea of that, so far to date, we've raised, and one thing to make clear here is I'm not here to ask you all for any money. So I just want to be very clear about that. So far privately, we've been able to raise about $330,000. You can see the breakdown of how that's come through a variety of efforts from corporate sponsorship, individual donors, as well as foundations and other organizations locally. But even at a broader level, we've gotten over $350,000 from the Illinois COVID Relief Fund. That's the larger statewide fund run by Penny Pritzker, the former Commerce Secretary under Obama. And so that is a testament to the efforts that we've had here locally and the coalitions that we've built, that we've been able to attract resources from the state level. What we've spent to date then is, as I indicated earlier, about $285,000, which leaves us with just over $500,000 available to continue to address these various needs over the coming months. Here are a handful of the businesses that have been a part of that, helping us locally. Here are some of the other organizations. You can see a diverse and wide-ranging span of donors helping us out here, as well as community organizations and others. So how can you help? I'd say the bottom line is, if you know of where there are gaps in the community, of where there's needs that we have not identified, please bring those to our attention. Obviously, monetary resources individually are always assisted, as well as identifying are there volunteers or other collaborators that would be good for us to work with. In closing, you can see here are some of the ways that you can gather updates from us. We hold a virtual town hall through Zoom every Saturday at 9 a.m. and provide updates. We send out a weekly update that updates all the impact numbers and other key areas of information. And then a lot of the information is housed on our website over time. So with that, I will close and stop sharing my screen here and see if there are any questions for me. Yep, go ahead.
Hi, David. Thank you for all the work. It's very impressive, the collaboration that you've created. And I think Bloomington Normal will be, is being served very well. I'm a little concerned by the numbers of the individuals that you have on your task force. Do not represent the entire county. You have no rural other than Leroy School District. We have school districts in Olympia. We have Chenoa is in Prairie Central. Cropsey is Prairie Central. We have Lexington. I mean, a lot of school districts that are not being represented. which is a bit concerning, especially considering like Olympia provides a lot of meals. And so I would like to see any of your communications to be going through that Olympia school district, as well as those school districts in my district, which include Gridley, Lexington, Cropsey, all of those towns in District 1. But there are also Hayworth, lots of other districts that are not being represented. The other piece of that I saw, you had townships were only represented by Normal and Bloomington Township. There are 30 townships in this county that are not being leveraged. And I think that could be a potential that you're missing there. So those are my concerns, because our rural citizens don't generally say much. They don't come to Bloomington to get a lot of resources. So we need to maybe reach out potentially, is where I'm at on that.
And I can respond a little bit to that. First of all, for those of you who don't know me, I grew up in Colfax, graduated from Ridgeview High School. So I'm very connected with the rural community. And we've already, while they're not represented on the task force, Ray Ropp and Gary Tipsworth are on the task force specifically to provide a connection to the rural and agricultural communities. And we are already supporting Olympia, Lexington, Ridgeview, Leroy, and there was one other school district through meals that we've been providing. So we've been providing the produce, boxes of food, and other things out to those districts already. Hayworth and Tri-Valley didn't want any, but El Paso, Gridley, and Chenoa is an area that we can still reach probably.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's good to know. And Colfax is in my district, and Ridgeview is always have needs just like everyone else. So thank you very much for reaching out.
500 families in the outlying districts.
Member Solner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And David, I want to thank you for all the hard work and information that your group's been doing. A couple months ago, we had Karen Zangerly from PATH gave us a little program on what was going on. And again, that's been a while ago, so I assume things have changed. Are you collaborating with PATH at all to get information?
Oh, yeah. PATH. So for those who aren't familiar, United Way of McLean County helped start the 211 line here locally using PATH as the service provider for it, and we continue to provide funding. So Karen and I are in fairly frequent conversation. She's been a part of our housing coalition, and she and I are coordinating on marketing, creating that awareness for people that need assistance to reach out through 211 and PATH to get connected with the resources they need.
Thank you. Member Taylor, or Member Taylor? Dave?
I have no political aspirations, so.
Quite an extensive collaborative effort that you've put together. Pass on our congratulations to everyone for all that you've done and all the help that you're giving. I don't know if it's possible if you could make available the PowerPoint that you just showed us.
Yep.
With your permission, we make sure all of our county board members would receive that, and that would be helpful as well. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 4 on our agenda. Departmental matters. 4A is executive committee items to present for action. Appointments. Is there a motion to approve our 2 appointments? 4A. Motion by member Wolrab. Is there a second? Member Gordon, comments or questions? Basically, Mr. Zimmerman has been on the zoning board for many years, done a great, outstanding job for us, and has asked to now move to an alternate position as he's been going into retirement. And Ruth Novosad has been recommended to replace him as a full-time member who has been serving as one of our alternates, as you all know. If there are no other comments, all in favor of approving the appointments, please raise your hand. And opposed? Motion is carried. Reappointments are item B. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Barnett. Is there a second? Second by member Casely. Any comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item C is request approval of a renewal agreement with IWORQ iWork Information Technology, and that can be found on pages 6 through 17. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Schaefer, second by member Gordon. Any comments or questions? If none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. Have no other items for executive committee at this time. We'll go on to item B, Finance Committee report. Chairman Solder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finance has several items today to present for action. First one is B1A, request approval of the Illinois State Board of Elections voter registration state grant 2020 acceptance agreement and addendum, and I would make that motion.
Motion by Chairman Solner. Is there a second? Second by member Metzger. Comments or questions? Member Solner.
Yes, I just wanted to mention, this is something I believe we've got in the past. It's for $71,603. And there's a possibility if some other counties don't use that money that we could get some more of that extra money later on. So again, I think it's a good deal.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? Motion is carried.
All right, next item is B1B. It's a presentation of acceptance of the popular annual financial report, which is the PAFR, for December 31st, 2019. I don't believe we're going to have a presentation. I know the information was in your packet, and I would make a motion to accept that.
A motion by Chairman Solner, second by member Erickson. Comments or questions? Member Woolrab?
Still muted.
Couldn't find my cursor, sorry. Okay, thank you. I wanted to say that, I really appreciate the PAFR. It's a very digestible report and, wins awards, and I think it's a great thing. I just want to point out, I think it was just an unfortunate choice of the term, referring to our jail as a flagship, and I just thought, to me, a flagship is a showcase or a crown jewel, and while jails are important, and I'm proud that ours is safe and great, better for mental health reasons and all those things, I just wish we'd use maybe something like state of the art. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone? So we have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed. Motion is carried.
Next item is B1C, which again is the presentation of the fiscal year 2019 audit comprehensive annual financial report from Clifton Larson Allen. In the packet, it shows part 1 and part 2, which the first part is the CAFR, the second part is the single audit report. As of yesterday, they hadn't got, or Monday, they hadn't got the, that was yesterday, the single audit report done. Possibly we will look at it stand up. So at this point, we are just going to approve the CAFR. Is that correct, administration?
Yes,
Okay.
That's correct.
that is correct.
We're voting only on C1.
Correct.
Okay, I will make that motion.
Motion by member Solner. Is there a second? Second by member Metzger. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? Motion is carried. Item C2 will be carried over. It's tabled until stand up.
That's all we have for action. I did want to make a comment. At our finance committee, our treasurer gave us our monthly financial report. For those of you that weren't there or aren't aware of it, some of the numbers that we got were somewhat alarming. Again, it shows because of the reduction in sales tax revenue, local tax use, the PPRT, we're down about 400. What was the number? I'm sorry. We're $382,000 for the month of March from 2019 to 2020. So that wasn't good. The other thing I wanted to mention that year to date, we are currently down about $156,000. So again, it's not, it's something we're gonna have to get used to. Hopefully things will get better, but I just wanted to make people aware of that. You should be sure and look at the packet when you get it on the treasurer's information, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Member Shaver?
Yeah, I have a question for Member Soldner. I know that we have the new, the dispensary in Normal opened, and so we should be getting some cannabis sales tax, but I know that they're several months behind on how that works and stuff like that. So that's kind of why I waited to ask this question. Is the treasurer going to have that separated out separately on the reports for finance, like she has sales tax and different things, so that we can get an idea of what we're getting on that?
Actually, she does. This month, we received $914. We don't want to spend it all in one place, but again, that she's doing that. It will be in our monthly financial reports, and it's broken out as cannabis use tax. So we will see how that works. And again, I don't know whether to hope that number goes up, hope the number goes down, or whatever. But anyhow, it is what it is. So she will be doing that.
Thank you. We'll move on to the report of the Health Committee. Chairman Schaefer, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our Health Committee has no items for action today, but we will have an item for action next week for the board.
Thank you. We'll go on to item D, Land Use and Development Committee report. Chairman Erickson.
We can't hear
We have no
you.
audio.
We can't hear you.
Well, let's see. Who's the vice chairman? Member Woolrab is.
Member Woolram.
Member Woolrab, can you hear me?
You're still muted too. Member Woolram. There we go.
We have 3 items to present for action. The first one, D1A, request by Land Use and Development Committee for a text amendment of the Code of McLean County, Chapter 350, zoning, Section 250-21C, to state that an applicant may first submit an application for a text amendment to the Land Use and Development Committee for advice or recommendation prior to having it submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a public hearing.
Member Woolrab, it's been discovered that needs to go to ZBA first, and it's an error that it was still left on the agenda. So that will go to ZBA first. So we'll pull item A and go on to item B.
So we'll pull item A. Thank you, Mr. Chair, letting us know that. So we'll move on to item B, request by the McLean County Regional Planning Commission to approve a regional planning service agreement for their fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
Motion by Vice Chair Woolrab. Is there a second? Second by Member Kaisley. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, raise your hand. Did we get everybody? And opposed? Any comments? Motion's carried.
Okay, D1C, request by the Ecology Action Center to approve a household hazardous waste collection and facility feasibility study program agreement between the EAC, City of Bloomington, Town of Normal, the Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District, and McLean County.
Motion by member Woolrab, second by member Schaefer. Comments or questions? Member Solner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have mixed feelings on this. I've always been a big supporter of recycling and seeing that we keep the hazardous waste out of the landfills and out of our water. And normally I would be a big supporter of this. My concern is this is one of those things that, although it's 14,000 something to the county on an annual basis, the total program is $395,000. Now that's for years 2021, 22, 23. So it is for 4 years, and we are getting revenue from other sources. I just wanted to say this is another one of those things that we're going to have to start looking at. And again, I realize it's not a lot of money for the county, but all these little programs after a while add up. So I'm going to support it. I'm going to vote for it. But I just want members to start realizing there's going to come a time when we're going to have to start saying no to some things. So anyhow, I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. I believe you had your hand up, Mr. Casely.
I am concerned about the method of distributing the revenue for this program to the various taxing bodies. And it seems to me, as a resident of the town of Normal, that I'm going to be hit 3 times on this. The first being as a resident of the town, the second as a resident of the county, and the third as a resident of the Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District. I don't understand why the town and the Water Reclamation District and the city of Bloomington are paying for this, because they're already, all of those people are already paying through the county. And it seems to me that if the county's share is not enough, that it ought to be raised rather than having some people paying more than once through more than one taxing body for this service. And I think it's a valuable service. I use it myself, and I'm a veteran recycler, but I certainly wonder about the method of financing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? And I'll call the question. All in favor of item C, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Do you have any other items for action?
Sorry, no, we have no other items for action and nothing to be presented to the board.
Thank you. We'll move on to the report of the Transportation Committee. Chairman Casely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Transportation Committee has no items for action by the Executive Committee, and we have 3 items, 2A, B, and C, in the agenda that will be presented to the board next week. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the report of the Property Committee. Chairman Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Property brings no items for action to Executive Committee this evening. We'll have 1 item for the full board next week.
Thank you. Report of the Justice Committee. Chairman Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Justice Committee brings 1 item for action to the Executive Committee this afternoon, item G1A, request approval of a limited data use agreement, the McLean County Coroner Fall Study with Illinois State University, found on pages 66 through 74 in our packet, and I will move that.
Motion by Chairman Gordon. Is there a second? Second by Member Schaefer. Comments or questions? Member Metzger.
I just want to acknowledge the efforts that our coroner is pursuing on this huge research study. It proves her commitment to our our county and trying to determine what could be done to prevent falls that end up causing people's death. And so it's very unusual that we see this kind of research coming through the coroner's office, and just wanted to acknowledge her and her efforts.
Thank you. Any other comments? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? And the motion is carried.
That's all that we have from the Justice Committee. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to the report of the County Administrator, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chairman McIntyre. I bring forth an item for action under H1A, which is approval of critical hire requests. You can find those on page 75 and 76 of your packet. Of note is that the items or the item directly related to Executive Committee would be the requests under behavioral health for triage center specialist positions. The other critical hire requests have already come forth in front of the respective oversight committees as per our rule change this year.
Do I hear a motion? Member Gordon, is there a second? Member Barnett? Comments or questions? Discussion? If none, all in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? Motion has carried.
Thank you. Chairman, I only have item H3A, which is my report on recent employment activities on page 77. I'd, as usual, be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business or communication tonight? Member Solner.
I guess it's more of a question for our administrator. Are we going to have a presentation of the PAFR and the CAFR at full board next week? The reason I'm asking, I know it might be hard to do. Again, I know we always did it on the screen and all that, but I know that there's a lot of good information in there. I think members would be interested in, but again, I'm not sure whether it's possible to do with the current program with the tiles. So anyhow, I would recommend it if we could.
We can certainly put forth a presentation almost as other presenters have done. We kind of take over the screen, so we could do that for the membership at county board. Yes, we could.
I guess mainly just a summary. I guess again, from the information I got, it looked like, other than our enterprise fund with the nursing home, the past year we've done relatively well. We don't know how it's going to be a year from now, but I just think it's a good idea maybe to have some kind of a summary presentation.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you. Member Metzger.
Member Stolner, are you thinking the documentation that was given by Clifton Larson, or are you thinking the document that was pulled together by the auditor, Ms. Anderson?
I believe Clifton Larson. Again, I don't know that we need her, Ms. Wheeler to come or not, but I think again, if we could just have some kind of summarized document.
This one?
Yeah. And
okay.
we don't need all the numbers. Again, I think just some of a summary again of kind of where we're at, I think would be a good idea.
So not the entire review that Clifton Larson did, just a higher level than that? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, the other thing I think we need to possibly look at some of the management notes. Again,
Okay.
just to kind of give us the board an idea of where we're at, things maybe we need to improve on. Just in general, again, I'm not wanting to be specific on anything, but I I just think it's a good idea.
Well, my recommendation would be you be very clear on what you want that presentation to be to our administration so they can make it happen. Because
Okay.
I, from what you asked, I didn't understand what the expectation was.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Do you have any other business? Member Kingsley?
Last month, we tabled a resolution, and I'm wondering if that will be placed back on the agenda for the June meeting of the board. I'm referring to the resolution that was tabled at our last special meeting.
The proper procedure would be for a member, I believe, we may need a legal interpretation on that, but a member of the board to bring it to administration. I think that's the way it's within the rules, isn't it?
Yeah, somebody had to tell us to put it on the
You
agenda.
have to put it on the agenda, otherwise it's tabled uncertain, to a date uncertain at this time.
I'm wondering then if we should not have that on the agenda so that we can consider it.
Well, then you'll have to bring that into administration for putting on the agenda.
So I
Remember,
have to make a request.
It is delineated within the rules that, and Mr. Knapp is present and he can correct me if I misspeak, but you would have to provide in writing to me a request to place an item on the agenda, since that was tabled to a date uncertain. So we would have to restart the process and you would have to provide me with a formal request 6 days in advance of the meeting.
Thank you.
Member
okay,
Gordon.
I got it. Member
Okay.
Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In relation to the suggestion that Member Kingsley just made, am I correct? And I'll direct this to the chair and to Mr. Knapp if he's there, since he's there. Am I correct that if we have it on the agenda, what would be on the agenda would be a motion to take from the table?
That's correct.
We would need to vote on that motion before we could then take it up,
That is correct.
assuming it passes.
And you would
Is that
be,
correct?
that is correct. And you'd be bringing the same resolution as was in our packet. This previous meeting.
Since that was what was laid on the table, yes, I would assume that. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I wanted to clarify that. Thanks again.
Anyone else? Member Mister?
I guess I'm confused as to what Member Kingsley, why, considering the time that has passed, the purpose of bringing that forward. Can he explain?
Well, it's just kind of hanging out there as unfinished business. I think that we have, by putting this resolution forward, we and other counties in this sub area have forced the governor's hand and have required opening up more. And I think that's a good thing. And maybe we should just continue to have it on the front burner in the event that the governor decides to go back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Well, I have 3 financial items here, bills to pay. First of all, I have before me Fund 0010 Regional Planning Fund bill of $8,977.23. I'll need a motion to pay it. Is there a motion? Motion by Member Solner, second by Member Gordon. All in favor, please raise your hand. And opposed? Motion is carried. I also have our usual expenditures from our general fund, shared sales tax, Veterans and Assistance Commission, and Waste Management, where it's total of $271,448.34. Is there a motion approved? to pay. Motion by member Schaefer, second by member Woolrab. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, raise your hand. And opposed. Motion is carried. We also have one transfer item found on the back of your packet for hardware and software and transfer over for $7,000 in IT. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by member Gordon, second by member Woolrab. Comments or questions? If none, all in favor, raise your hand. And opposed. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. And this meeting is adjourned.